Hi there, everybody. Happy holidays from the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Hope you had a great holiday and cool to bring you this show just right after Christmas. And hopefully we're all thinking about flying gliders instead of presents. Just a reminder, we've got a few more days left of our Garmin discount for an inReach device, an SE or Explorer, that it lasts until the 30th. So we still got 3 more days if we get this one out on time, which we're planning on doing. Use the code GAVIN2017, lowercase or uppercase altogether, GAVIN2017 when you go to checkout, and that'll get you 10% off an inReach device. As I said on the last show, inReach is just far, far, far superior to a Spot. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but it is your safety. Having that two-way communication is really, really critical when it comes to anything bad going down. So I think you owe it to your loved ones to get one. Make sure you have one every time you fly or you're farting around in the backcountry. Super important piece of device. I don't go anywhere without one. This show, as y'all know, I was just down in Mexico flying in the pre-PWC with Miguel Gutierrez and his amazing team down in Zapoltepec, which was a new place to fly. Talked about that quite a bit on the last show, but I was able to sit down with kind of a hero of mine, a guy named Phil Glutz, who I became aware of looking at his tracks. Bruce Marks, one of my ex-Alps supporters and flying buddy for many, many, many years, started seeing Phil's track logs on X Contest years ago, and he lives in Zermatt, up right near the Matterhorn, which is kind of it's kind of like the Telluride of the Alps. It's like the Box Canyon if you've never been. Of course, you know the Matterhorn, you've seen pictures, but it's, backside of Monte Rosa, some of the highest mountains in the Alps by far. You're just across the Rhone from the Eiger and the Jungfrau and Monk, and really tricky place to fly, tough place to fly, and often one of the main FAI waypoints when you're doing the Fiche FAI. But to start in Zermatt is really cool because you're starting off a glacier, you're starting super tall, and you fly down kind of the east-facing side in the morning. You can leave there really early and be down to Visp before the day's even really on. And so it's a great place to start triangles from, but just very few people live up there and fly cross country from there. And so Phil and some of his buddies, Chris Manford and some of those guys, have been putting up some really cool lines there for years. And so I wanted to talk to him about that, which we did, but I also wanted to talk to him about flying tandems. We've had a lot of pilots on the show who, of course, fly tandems, but I've never really tapped into that angle of things. And so I thought that'd be really interesting. And then, not really reluctantly, but Phil had a pretty bad accident about a year ago, and I didn't know this, but Pal Tackett, who was on the show ways back, talked about a really bad accident that he had. He was living with Phil at the time when that went down, so I didn't know that. And this is not a downer. We don't get into the downside of an accident and recovery and all that kind of stuff, but what we do to get into is just kind of a warning about complacency, because it happened on a day that everything was totally perfect. It was not a gnarly day. It was just one of these things that happen because you're really almost even too good of friends with the other pilot that was in the air, and they were trying to avoid a midair. So some really good lessons there, and some really cool mental lessons from coming back from something like that. Phil's totally chasing it hard, didn't have much trouble at all coming back from that, and but he gives some really good thoughts on how that whole process goes. And so I think you're going to enjoy that aspect as well. But Phil's been flying since the very beginning of paragliding, and it went from being an engineer to making a life out of paragliding, which is his journey is really cool. So I think you're going to enjoy it. So without further delay, please enjoy this great conversation live from Mexico with Phil Glutz. Phil, it's pretty cool to be doing this live here in Mexico at the pre-World Cup. We've been having some awesome days of flying fast around a really cool new site here in Zapoltepec. And you and I didn't know each other personally before this trip, but I've been following your flights in Zermatt forever because Bruce, my ex-Alps supporter, is always going like, look at what this dude's doing, look at what these dudes doing. And it's been, so this is a real honor for me to kind of get some background and some history. I thought maybe a cool place to start out would be for those that don't know much about the Alps or that don't know about Zermatt, because, to be a local flying in Zermatt is not the same as like Annecy. There's not that many of you guys up there, and so I thought can you paint us an audio visual picture of where you guys are operating, what you're doing. And I know it's just not you sending good flights, but it's your whole life and your whole business there. So give those people that haven't been to the Matterhorn, can you describe that area? Because it's pretty unique.
I kind of by accident, I ended up in a little valley that has the most iconic peak in the Alps, the Matterhorn. And Zermatt's this incredible place. It's a tourist town, but it's the highest part of the Alps. There's actually 29 peaks in the Zermatt Valley that are over 4,000 meters, and 40-something peaks in the surrounding valleys that are over 4,000 meters. So the Mont Blanc is a massif, and it's got a few peaks surrounding it, but the Matterhorn Valley is the highest area for flying. It's kind of up there. It's extreme. It's the narrow valley. It's the end of a valley. It's got strong wind systems. Of course, we get strong valley winds in the springtime. We're very susceptible to south wind. We kind of have a local Föhn effect as soon as the wind turns southwest on us. In the wintertime, or any time, if the wind is slightly from the east, we get a nasty wind affecting one of our takeoffs, and the rest of the valley can be calm. But we've got a howling wind on our main takeoff. Yeah, it's big mountain flying, and with a postage stamp for a landing stuck on the side of a valley next to the railway station.
Yeah, your landing is just silly. When I was training there for the 2015 race for the X Alps, I ended up hooking up with Michael Vichy. We happened to just be flying there on the same day because it was a pretty decent day, and we both landed together at that little postage stamp you're talking about. And I was like, wow, this is where you guys do tandems and stuff. It's tiny.
It's fine if there's wind, if the wind is consistent. And we get strong valley winds, which is fine. You can land on a postage stamp. The only thing we have to deal with then is turbulence, because just in front of the landing, the valley narrows. So we get turbulence from that, and it's up on the side of a hill, slightly above a 4-meter wall. So we get rotor rotating off the train tracks up onto the landing, so you can get dumped despite your best efforts to have a safe landing.
So why are you there? It sounds terrifying.
Yeah, why am I there? That's a long story, but
well, cool. Well, we'll get into it. I wanted to just express on the listener that if you haven't been to that area, like it's a place I've flown through a lot now, and even in this race, the 2017 race, because we didn't have to go. Typically, we go north of it because we're on the way to Mont Blanc, And this year, the cylinder is always 5K because you can't really make it like a top landing. The Matterhorn doesn't really suit that, and so this year we came on the south side, and it's amazing how dense everything is there. Like Domodossola is right over the corner. I mean, the Sass Valley is right there. There's Zermatt Valley, but just on the other side, it's a whole nother world. One, you literally are in another country. You're in Italy, and there's 4 big valleys on that side, and it all just compresses in there, doesn't it? I mean, to me, it's still a place that just demands massive amount of respect.
Yeah, and I'm still learning about it. Still learning about these passes, high mountain passes, and the valleys, and the different wind systems, and how they're affected by the mountains. We get constantly surprised. As you know, you get the weather forecasting is getting better and better, but local effects are so local. We fly in weather and wind systems that require knowledge of what's going to happen from here to 500 meters away, and there's no forecast that's going to give you that. So we're constantly surprised, despite our best efforts to understand what the wind and the weather is going to do every day.
Is it a numbers game? Is it the kind of thing where after all these years you've you've got it pretty figured out, but things are always a little bit surprising. I mean, I would imagine, to me, it's like you couldn't put yourself in a trickier place in the Alps, really. I don't know of one. Maybe there are, but you've put yourself in a place that is super demanding. Do you dig that, or is it still kind of like a little bit? I don't know.
No, it's I've made it my home. It's like when I first started flying solo before I got my tandem license, I started flying in that valley. I kind of made an effort, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time, but I just go and fly, and I go and fly up through these peaks and around this valley, and I made it my own. It's my reverie, like an eagle defending its territory. I tell my students or people I'm, let's say, inverted commas, mentoring, I'm like, you got to go and own it. Go and fly. You got to fly in those cool eyes. You got to fly over those peaks, and you're not going to feel comfortable unless you've been there so many times. You're like, this is what I do. This is where I belong. And I spent a lot of time doing that, just enjoying the altitude before I ever got into comps or acro or high performance gliders or anything like that. So I just went and bimbled around these incredible peaks.
So we talked a little bit before we started this going. You and I have some shared history in Wollongong, Australia. How'd you go from? And your accent's giving you away here, but how'd you go from? Were you a pilot in Oz? Give us the resume version of your flying history. How'd you end up in Zermatt?
I actually started flying. I retired from my engineering career and went traveling. And my friend and I always had this dream to do a season, be ski bums in Chamonix. At the time, the Greg Stump movies were coming out, and there was Scott Schmidt and Glenn Blake hucking cliffs and doing cool wires. And we thought we were pretty hot skiers, which we are in no way at that level.
That you'd learned in Kosciuszko?
We had our little club called the Out of Bounds Club, and I didn't spend any time. I spent very little time skiing on piste in Australia. Really? I'll tell you that. We made a point of going skiing breakable crust through gnarly eucalyptus snow gums, right? We could ski some pretty difficult stuff, but then anyway, we got to Chamonix. We had a fantastic year, and my friend saw this advert for a paragliding learn to paraglide course, basic beginner's course in a place called Planjou, just out of the Chamonix Valley. Okay. And it was like discounted for some reason. And I'd been thinking about this for since paragliding began. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't get into it when I was in Australia. I was too busy with engineering and surfing and windsurfing and playing music. I was either practicing or gigging like 5 times a week or something. My life was full, and I kind of knew, and I suspected that if I ever touched paragliding.
How did you know about paragliding at that point? Was it from Oz or from your time in Chamonix?
No, it was from Australia. I didn't. I'd seen them up at Stanmore Park, obviously, and I'd seen the hang gliders guys from years back launching from Mount Kira, just above my house. Yeah. Sadly, that takeoff's no longer used. What a tragedy. Yeah. Amazing place to fly for hangies. But there was a Swiss guy who was running a restaurant called the Eagle's Nest in Thredbo. And he actually
Thredbo, yeah.
Now Thredbo was the site of the first world championships of paragliding? Really? They probably had spot landing competitions or something 100 years ago. And he had
and it's also kind of the headwaters of the biggest river in Oz, right? Isn't that, what's the river there?
The Murray.
The Murray, yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe
somewhere
that pass. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Just above, maybe is it Dead Horse Gap, just above Thredbo, which is that side, maybe goes down to, you're testing my geography there. Maybe.
Thredbo's a cool little town.
Thredbo's got some good vertical, and if you to get good skiing in Australia, you need to spend a season. Otherwise, it's pot luck. Yeah. But anyway, Heinz Glutz, this Swiss guy, had this paraglider hanging up in the ceiling of his restaurant in the Eagle's Nest in Thredbo, and we always got talking because we somehow let slip that my brother and I and my sister as well, we have Swiss nationality because through dad. Okay. And so we'd go and visit Heinz and kind of got chatting to him a few times, and he'd call us the Swiss Mafia is here. So he kind of knew us vaguely. And well, my brother and I were interested in learning to fly, and I swapped numbers with Heinz, and we were going to do a course with him at some stage, but logistically it just never worked out. And looking back, I'm quite happy that I started to learn when I did, because things developed so far from that point that I'm kind of happy I wasn't one of those magnificent men in their flying machines, experimenting with stuff that was
nutty
and deadly. The stories you hear, the war stories of like Miguel talking about building deltas out of bits of PVC tube and plastic. I mean, come on.
Oh, it's absurd. It's crazy what those guys went through to give us what we have, isn't it?
It was incredible. So paragliding developed along, and I kept on with my engineering career for quite a few years. And I did this course in Planjou in Chamonix. And that was cool. I had 7 flights under my belt. Thought I was amazing.
Shit.
I'll never forget. We had 2 days of practice, and then I think 1 or 2 days of bad weather, and Philippe, the trainer, didn't speak much English, and we thought we came back after a break, and we said we go to training. He's like, no, décollage, take off. Like, what? And the 3 of us who were doing this course were like jaws dropped. Okay, try to remember everything you learned a few days ago, because as you know, when you learn a skill, man, you need to repeat that. And I'm trying to think.
Give me a year here. Is 99?
99, yeah.
Okay.
Spring of 99.
Yep.
And I'll never forget. It's one of those images that seared into your brain. I'm a forgetful person. I have a memory like a goldfish, but there are certain things that you will never ever forget. And that's standing on the takeoff. You're clipped in. You've checked everything 15 times. The start helper is on the start. You've got the little wind flag showing the wind. Everything's perfect, and you know it's perfect. And the guy in front of you says, "Okay, Phil, you can go now." And you know that too because you've checked the wind 15 times. But you know that when you take that first step, that's it. It's got to flow. It all happens, and it all happens in this instant. And then you're in the air, and you just let out this scream and. Like, wow, I'm actually flying. This is for real now. And the shock of it, wore off short time later, and I was like totally relaxed, saying, "This is where I belong. This is so what I want to do." And that was 1999.
99. We got to veer off into this. Why do engineers like this sport so much? Because they're ubiquitous. There's so many engineers that fly.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know whether I think engineering probably and the geekiness goes together with understanding flying and the aerodynamics and stuff, but probably more so with fixed wing and powered flight, the whole business of checks and
the methodicalness.
Yeah. That fits together probably with an engineer's brain. For me, I was interested in flying since I was a kid. I was building balsa gliders, and back in the day, you couldn't buy little radio controlled gliders for the price you can now. It's incredible. I used to just build models the gliders that just you'd throw them off the hill and hope they flew in a straight line, and balsa just they crash and you break a wing and you go home and repair it. And I was building gliders and I built my own 2-stringer kite, and stuff like that. So I had this passion for flying before I was even an engineer. Do engineers make good pilots? I hope so.
I think so. I find that, especially at these comps and stuff, you get to know people a little bit more and stuff. And I find that paragliders go up and they go down. I think it also really fits people's personality. I mean, I think we're all, in a sense, maybe a little, I won't say manic, but it's like, it just fits who we are somehow. And it just seems like there's a lot of engineers. So I've often wondered if it's because I'm not an engineer. The math is not my strength. And I've often wondered if it's like if it's one of these things that's if you're an engineer, you're really analytic and you're really inside your brain, and maybe this is a way where you can get out of it, or maybe it's a break, maybe it's just more.
I don't
that
think
intensity
so.
that you like about it.
I think you bring that into the sport. I don't think you go to escape it. Engineers are generally, from my experience, a lot of them they're highly intelligent. I'm not necessarily putting myself in that box, but very self-reliant, very self-assured, and I had to, I've dealt with that through my previous life as an engineer. So, and paragliding is one of those sports, I think, like scuba diving. You have to have a level of self-confidence that matches your situation. Too confident, and obviously that can kill you. But if it gets serious, and you're up in the air, and you've got to bring yourself down. No one else can help you. And the clown on the end of the radio, so I'm putting myself in that position now as an instructor. He's only the guy on the end of the radio. He's got a limited ability to help you even as a student. So right from the start of your paragliding career, let's say, you have to be comfortable with kind of being alone. And I think engineers they probably have more so than others. They're not. They get by in their careers. Certainly, they don't have to be the most social people in the world. They have a task to do. They have problems to solve, and they're good at problem solving. That's definitely what good engineers do.
And that's what paragliding is, isn't it? I mean, when
you
get in the shit, you got to solve the problem. You can't hit the stop button.
That's it.
I wonder if that's it.
And scuba diving, as an example, is the same.
Yeah,
if things get desperate, you got to stay cool and calm and sort things out for yourself. Buddy can kind of help you with scuba diving. We don't have a buddy system who can give us a wing. Yeah. So we're maybe one step further along the self-reliance line than those guys. But yeah, so I think engineers, they don't fly for escape. They, of course, you've got to love flying. You got to love defying gravity. Maybe because we spent all that time studying physics and stuff.
You're doing what you shouldn't be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We should be up here, but it works. It's incredible.
Yeah. It is an engineering feat, isn't it?
It's a marvel. I wonder where it's going to go.
We're jumping ahead here because there's a few things you've already said that I want to come back to, and we're not nearly done with your history. But what do you think, is now that you're instructing, tell me about the perfect student and maybe the opposite end of that. Like, how do you know when someone's going to be, they come to you for the first time, they've never flown. How do you know if can you already kind of tell, like, this person's got probability here, whether good or bad? Are there some signs? You and Chris were talking about, that your you hate the stereotype, but your best tandem passengers are from Korea. They're just stoked and happy and stoked. Do you see that in students as well?
Yeah, I don't teach many students. You could probably ask the guys, my colleagues from Interlaken, and they'd be able to tell you more. I fly thousands of tandem passengers, so I'm allowed to be judgmental there. But yeah, I guess a good student has an air of like that. Like I said about the engineers, they have at least an air of self-confidence. Usually they have a sporting ability. You see how they behave. They normally have some motor skills. Like you see that right from the start, like pulling a wing out of a bag. Who's going to be a problem student and
Right.
who isn't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
My best student is my partner, Anouk. Hi, Anouk. But she's a classic. She's calm, incredibly sporty and balanced. But she's one of those people who, whatever she puts her hand to, sport, she's just balanced and gets into it. Yeah, you can see it coming when you get certain students who you just need to steer them into maybe another sport.
Yeah.
So maybe this is not for you.
Take up swimming.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Back to the Alps and back to specifically where you live. So when I was learning, and we started going to the Alps for the first time, it's mostly Bruce, a fellow Australian, good friend of yours, and someone who's been following your stuff for a long time. We always gravitated toward the fiches of the Alps, big mountain sites where things happen faster and it's bigger and it's bolder, maybe it's, but also way more risky. There's a lot of people that go to the Alps and fly, and they're going to stick with the Laranjas and, places that are, one, you can see farther and you can see stuff coming, and you've maybe got more time and things don't happen so extreme. In other words, like the maritime Alps are just lower. You like you said, you're in the biggest of the big, and things happen there violently and fast. What is it about your personality, and what is it about your? And like I said, I'm putting you on the spot. I'm not, but there really is a huge difference there. Why do you think it suits your personality to be where you are?
Yeah, Zermatt. I didn't choose Zermatt. Zermatt chose me. I guess it does. It suits me now, having progressed to the level I've progressed. But I was never like incredibly confident. I'm not a super confident person per se, but over the years I've become. Now I can say I'm a super confident paragliding pilot. It's interesting, yeah. I arrived in Zermatt because a friend of mine had coincidentally started learning paragliding at the same time in another country. Was already living in Zermatt for a few years, and he was raving about it. And I'd never spent a summer in the Alps or flying, and I wasn't getting enough flying at the time. So I moved to Zermatt.
Is this from Oz?
No, I was going back to. I was doing seasons at the time, skiing in St. Moritz and teaching in St. Moritz and in Perisher, actually in Australia. So I was getting very little flying time in, and it was bugging me. So I moved to Zermatt because a friend of mine said, "You got to come here." And so I spent that first summer with a little bar job and flying every day.
And when you say flying every day, tandems or just
no, this is way before I had
okay.
I don't know, maybe less than 100 flights when I arrived in Zermatt, and yeah, I was a real rookie. I remember going up to Rotterdam, our main kind of takeoff, the first time by myself, not having tandems there or my mate Ronnie, just being there first time on this 3,000 meter peak, thinking, ooh, but I've been there enough times that I knew the conditions were okay, and I guess I'd probably checked in with the tandems before that, and I just nibbled away at it. I didn't know any better, I suppose. I mean, yeah, it's not as though I looked around the Alps and said, I'm going to choose Zermatt to progress my flying or to start a business or anything like that. It's a series of coincidences that brought me to Zermatt, and it's rugged high mountain terrain, and it's not beginner terrain, and I don't teach many students for that reason. Nobody comes to Zermatt, or I won't take a student on a week's course in Zermatt to learn to fly. I'll send them to Interlaken for sure, because the conditions and the potential to fly is so much higher. we fly in the mornings with students when the conditions are calm enough to allow us to do maybe 1 or 2 flights, and then that's it for them. What is it about flying in Zermatt that suits me? I guess through a long, slow process, I've become so familiar with the terrain that I feel like I belong in those mountains. I feel like I'm at home up in those high peaks, and I don't forget, or I try to remember when I'm up there that I'm flying. It's such a privilege to be there. I'm flying stuff on an afternoon where I might not have a tandem that people dream about to achieve in their paragliding careers, and I'll go and blow off an afternoon to go for a buzz around some 4,000 meter peaks. It's crazy.
Well, how did you start putting it together in terms of XC then? Because I mean, it's a bold place to start sending it from. Did you really, did you grind the brass tacks there? Did you?
Yep.
So
yep.
you had kind of 100 flights. You moved to Zermatt, and then that all.
I'd actually, I think the first proper or relatively big cross country flight I did was in Turkey. A guy I know there, Sammy Champion. Sammy he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, pardon the pun, but he was running a little course for some of his potential cross country pilots, comp pilots in a place called Zulu, which is a little out of the way mountain north of the main place that everyone goes to, which is Aludinez, Barbado. Yeah. And I was there on a holiday to Aludinez, and he took me to this place, and I ended up. It was the first time I had a proper task to fly, and I'd never really flown cross country before, but I'd flown quite a bit of thermal by that stage, just around the Zermatt Valley, and I ended up flying 50 Ks, and it was like one of my first cross country flights, and I flew over this high range and landed in the middle of nowhere, and got some crazy, way too easy retrieve back to Aludinez, and that was it. I was absolutely hooked on cross country flying. But in Zermatt, I just chipped away at it. I started flying around the end of the valley, not going past the landing really, and then I don't know, little by little, I was trying to get out of the valley. I guess it took longer than most people's progression because I was on my own. There was no one else. No one else was flying cross country in Zermatt. They were either flying tandems or not flying much. And after I tried to fly out of the valley, and then I was flying back in the day a DHV 1.2 glider, and I'd get to the end of the valley a few times, and I tried to cross Visp, and I thought this is impossible. I kept bombing out in Visp. It was like 3, 4, 5 times. I'd make it as far as Visp, which is quite easy at the right time of day. Yeah. If you leave it a little bit, I mean, I wasn't trying to launch for the first thermals. I was just trying to fly out of that valley and cross the valley, and
just going down that east-facing side on the west side. Yeah,
it was a long time before I actually connected with lift on the other side, and that was it. That was like this massive barrier being broken. Yeah, exactly. And of course, my flying got better. I got onto high performance gliders. Gliders improved, and it's become easier. It's definitely.
You've done some monster triangles out of there. What's still left to be done? What do you got? What are you and Chris looking at? What if you had the perfect day tomorrow and it's July 10th, you got a long day. You'd start early in the morning at like 8:30 off the what's it called?
Off the Klein Matterhorn.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Then go down the east facing side and cross over and go where? Or would you just lob over the other side and go down into Italy?
I could tell you, Gavin, but I have to kill you.
Excellent. Can we do it together?
Absolutely. That's the plan. we got all sorts of plans, and we're bored. Chris and I are swapping emails with the latest triangle that we've come up with on XC Planner. Thanks, Tom.
Well, yeah, thanks, Tom. And, exactly.
So we're pretty lucky. We can launch from 3,880 meters, but it's glacier and snow covered. And on a big day for triangles, you don't want any wind, so that's tricky.
Yeah.
But Chris is talking about staying overnight in either climb Matterhorn and hiking the Breithorn in the morning. So we got an extra few hundred meters, and heading east.
Okay.
Or somehow scamming a helicopter right up to the Margarita hut, saying we do some filming or something. Spend the night there, and be even higher and closer to the Macanyagua Valley or closer to Domodossola. So we've got a few plans.
Well, what's
another one?
What's the
okay? So the big flight I did, we'll talk about that later.
About
is the climb Matterhorn to Mont Blanc to Nice and
then back over. And you went right over the spine, like somewhere around the Jungfrau, or where did you come back into? What's the really on your side? The across from Visp and down valley, like Visp, Sion. What's that? Leukerbad. Did you come back into Leukerbad when you did that from Nissen?
No, I came over Kandersteg. I think I came over the Lochberg somewhere.
Even more stunning.
Oh, that was
Kandersteg's one of the most beautiful places on earth. Yeah.
That was 231K triangle FAI. So the plan will be to just do that again because it was so cool.
That's an amazing flight.
Look at the turn points and try to expand that maybe. We're looking at, I don't know whether it's going to work, but to fly like due south. I don't know whether it's going to be too stable in the mornings in the kind of I suppose the four Alps down there on the other side of the valley from Aosta. Maybe in the springtime this will work, but then maybe you have to fly south of Grand Paradiso and then head west into France and then come up the Chamonix Valley. You can probably help me out with this in terms of the national parks and the problems with that. And I've been studying that a bit, and that looks complicated, if not impossible. You
just don't land.
Yeah, there is that. That's exactly. You can fiddle with the triangles. I've come to realize with the percentage of closure, if you're going to fly a record, then you need to be within a certain distance of your start point. But if you want to fly an FAI, now we're kind of opening up that little wedge that moves around when you move your turn point around to see how far I have to get or how far away I can fly and what angles I can get so that my landing, the realistic landing is still an FAI, and then anything after that is a bonus. So if you head south from Klein and then west and then you come through Chamonix, you've done some monster triangle by the time you hit Martigny.
Yeah.
And it's a triangle. And then if you fly,
it's all just a bonus.
If you head back up to Visp from there and then home, I don't know what you're talking. Yeah. 300 300K triangles.
So proper big triangle in the biggest of the Alps. That would be pretty amazing.
And the other option is, like from what Chris is, we're using that extra altitude is to fly east across Macanyagua, Domodossola, Cento Valley.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in there, then it's going to be amazing. You pick you fly all the way to Locarno, and then diagonally up back into. I'm not sure how far you have to go. I have to look at my old.
Go tag the Eiger and come home.
Yeah, something like that. Imagine that.
Yeah, that'd be ripping. That'd be really good.
Yeah, there's the potential. Is there. Wings are getting better. We're getting better. We're getting bolder.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Don't you think that's I've said this so many times, but don't you dig that about this sport that that even you're in the mecca of paragliding in the world, and there's still so many possibilities. I mean, it just feels like we're barely tapping it. There's just so. I mean, where I'm from at home, it's just a joke how much there is to do. It's overwhelming even.
But for us, so Switzerland's a playground for paragliding in terms of retrieves, and it's just so easy getting up a mountain and getting home again. For you guys, where you fly, the whole thing's tiger country.
Yeah, a little more of a
crazy,
a little more of a gruel,
oxygen and all of this stuff. Yeah, the Alps is incredible, and the potential just grows.
Where would you, for people that are thinking about, coming over to the Alps for the first time this summer, what's the perfect itinerary? Give me assuming the weather is epic over the whole thing, you've got a nice high pressure system, and there's no rain and not much wind. Give me your 10 favorite sites.
I wish I'd flown so many sites. This is the thing about running a tandem business. This is one of the reasons I do big flights from Zermatt, is because it's where I live. I can get out the front door early in the morning and I can go up a mountain. I don't have to travel the day before or something. So that's limited my experience in terms of all the fantastic, amazing fly sites there are in the Alps. But someone who's never flown the Alps before, you got to think places like Annecy and Interlaken just give you that incredible view with the mellow Alps. So you've got nice takeoff conditions. The only thing you've got to deal with is traffic in both of those places, but the potential to do some little circuits with incredible white-capped 4,000 plus white-capped peaks in the background is amazing. So you probably want to work into it with one of those sites. You've probably got better ideas of the first sites to go to. Fierce you got to go to just because it's Mecca. I had to go to Chamonix because 9,000 vertical feet, dude, steep.
Yeah.
Just had to be part of that. The skiing. So Fierce is, and you can Fierce Goms. So heading heading east from Fierce, that's for the less experienced pilots. It's a great flight. You can probably do 50 k's up to
the Furka,
up and back.
Yeah.
You've got a big wide valley. They've even made the Münster airport airspace skinny, so you don't have to. You can land pretty much on the side of the valley you can land anywhere with rolling fields. It's a series of spines that you can hop across, or you can stay up on the back range and fly right along the ridge. That flight is
the classic,
relatively easy and a classic and fun. Once you head down into the main valley, then things get serious. Yeah. Depending on what the wind is doing,
there's spots in the road in the Rhine that can get pretty wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty wild for sure. So we've had a lot of tandem pilots on the show, but I've never asked any tandem questions. Let's get back to your history a little bit. How did that all get going? Was that the end of your engineering career?
Yeah, my engineering career had been put on standstill, and it was kind of, the mining boom was kicking off in Australia. This is 20 years ago. And part of me was thinking, do I want to go to Western Australia and when cleaners are earning $100,000 or something? It was ridiculous. And a small part of me was thinking, should I just go there and earn some money? And I just couldn't do it. In the meantime, my friend Ronnie Schneider had the other Swiss Australian. He was a bit ahead of me with his tandem training, and I kind of.
He was the friend that brought you to Zermatt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I came to Zermatt just as he was getting his tandem license, and while I was still progressing really, really slowly, I was still a beginner. I had this inner confidence about my flying abilities, and I thought, yeah, I could do this. And so I had that first year, it was 2002. I flew and flew and flew. I had to do my I had some restricted Australian license, I think. So I had to get my Swiss license. I had
which is a little demanding, I understand, isn't it?
No, the solo license is probably one of the more demanding ones. Okay. The good thing about it is it's an exam under exam conditions. So they're really friendly guys, but you have to perform in front of strangers, possibly a strange fly site, depending on where you sign up, and you have to perform under exam conditions, and that's a good thing. And the same goes for all the other exams. So I did the solo license, and within you're allowed to do the tandem, what was called the tandem B at the time. You have to wait 12 months and have a minimum 150 flights or something. So I had that within a few days of 12 months. I was signed up for the tandem B, and pretty much a month or two after the minimum requirement to do the tandem A solo license, I did that. It's a long, difficult, and expensive process. So it was 2 years of solid flying, and with a few odd jobs in between.
So one of the reasons I've always avoided being a commercial tandem pilot, I fly tandems for fun, but is that I always hear from tandem pilots, like the number one way to destroy your solo flying, like your
passion,
is to do tandems. Is that true? It doesn't seem like it with you.
Maybe Chris and I don't know, maybe we're the exceptions to the rule. I'm still learning. I haven't lost the passion for learning about this sport and improving and progressing. Maybe all these other guys are just better than me, and they've just done it all. And ask me in another 5 years, and maybe I'll give you a different answer.
Where you guys do tandems, is it kind of the churn and burn like an interlocking, or no? I mean, are you doing them all day?
We're doing them all day, but we do a lot less, and we get stopped by the weather a lot more often. Those guys fly 300 days or something a year, and I don't know how many. I haven't looked, but it's maybe half that. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
There are a lot of days, or there are a lot of afternoons where we're stopped because of strong winds and turbulence. So we don't risk a rough landing. And so yeah, we're yo-yoing a lot less than those guys, but it's full on now. Business has picked up, and it gets busier every year, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So we've come to the stage now where, like, I'll look at the weather, I'll study the weather, and I'll consciously take a day off tandem flying. I know it's going to cost me a bomb, but I'll take a day off tandem flying and go fly solo, to go fly one of these crazy triangles if the weather's good, because I don't want to miss out.
Yeah. So you've totally got the energy for it, even though you're doing these tandems. It's not like, oh God, I got to go flying.
But I do see it. I see that not in everyone, not in every pilot that I know, but it's like it's that saying, isn't it? Don't turn your passion into a business. And
if you looking back, if you had to do it all over again, would you do the same thing?
What do you mean, my life, or
the flying side of it?
Now, the flying side of it, I wish if I was surrounded with some like-minded people, kind of pushing their abilities a bit more. Maybe I wish I would have progressed a little faster.
Just because you didn't have the mentors and the people flying.
I didn't have. Yeah, maybe I need someone to say, "Wow, you're you're doing great now and then. I just, paragliding is a solo sport. A lot of time you're on your own. You have this amazing experience, and you come home and some of the other paragliders might be interested in it, but really you've done it for yourself, and it's great to share those experiences and the good and the bad with a like-minded group of people. And I didn't really have a lot of that through my whole paragliding career, let's say. I guess if you're in somewhere like Fierce or Interlaken with a whole bunch more pilots, you get exposed to that. And the other thing is I didn't learn through a school. I did my basic training through a school. After that, I was doing bits and pieces here and there with this instructor and a borrowed glider here and there and everywhere. So, and after that, I was kind of self-taught. I did my solo exam. I was training for my solo paragliding license, and I was doing this landing approach because it's a landing approach you had to do. No one really taught me anything about what was involved in the solo license. Ronnie told me the maneuvers I had to do in the time, so I went trading them. I was doing the landing approach. Someone said you should have hands up, you should have maximum speed, so you can flare. Or they didn't explain why. I just picked it up. You need to fly, maximum speed when you land. So I'd be doing a whole landing approach with 0 brakes, doing S's and stuff, and judging that, which turned out to be fantastic practice. Because when I realized, wow,
I can slow myself down a little bit.
I can halve my glide ratio on a school wing. What a revelation! But hey, and then the other thing was, after I did this basic course, I was backpacking around Turkey, and of course landed in Aludinez, and all I could see was a sky full of paragliders. I said goodbye to my friends. I said, I'm staying here. And luckily, I thought I was brilliant. I had 7 high flights. I knew how to fly. And I hooked up with Sky Sports, who are a fantastic company. I just lucked out to get probably the most professional tandem company there to look after me. And after 2 weeks, finally, Murat, the boss, he was like, go ground handling. I'm like, come on, I want to fly. Let me fly. He's like, one day he just said, okay, you want to fly? Go fly. Here's a radio. And so up I went in a tandem truck. And we used to have this, me and this South African guy who was working at the camping there, we used to have this old Edel, Ethel the Edel, we called it. And we take turns going up in the morning, and he'd be like, I'm going to smack that bitch. I'll give her hell today. I'm going to do a spiral. You won't believe. Oh, I did this spiral. So we would like push each other. And I think it must have had quite short lines, but, after 10 flights, I was doing spiral dives and everything on this thing, self-taught, just doing them by myself. And so I was quite comfortable with the G-forces and stuff, and came to the Swiss exam, and had to do a double circle to the right, ending on axis in 20 seconds or something. So I had it all wired. I pulled a full spiral. I was in the spiral by the first circle, and about 90 degrees before the exit, I'd ease it off, and I'd come out a really smooth, slow turn on axis, 0 pendulum. Had it nailed. And I land the first landing in the circle, walk away, and the guy's he's like, nope. Like, what do you mean? He says, no, you're supposed to do 2 circles without a break, ohne Unterbruch in German. He's like, you stopped the circle. I'm like, oh, well, that's how I exit. Like, he says, nope. He says, because he knew like I had 200 flights. He says, come and show me what you can do. So I had to. So that was I lost a so-called joker, and you get 3 flight. You get to do 1 repeat flight on your solo license. So I had to relearn my double circle
without break.
slowing it down,
Yeah.
take it easy. And one of the downsides of being self-taught, learning by doing.
Maybe you just answered this, but a question I ask pretty much everybody because I think it's enlightening. If you could go back, usually I say 50-hour self, but with you, I'm going to say 100 because you said you maybe had about 100 flights. Well, but that wouldn't be 100 hours.
That's a 50 hours. That's my 50-hour self. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you change if you could go back to that Phil then? Is there advice that you wish you would have taken, or is there something you wish you would have done differently from that point forward?
I know that I was kind of overconfident internally. Like I didn't probably display that, but I was just super quietly confident. I remember thinking I'd done 50 launches and 50 landings that were textbook. Like I never had a problem. I'd do these flights. I wasn't doing big long thermal flights or anything, but everything went from the very first flight was absolutely fine. I don't think I had a start abort. Maybe one. I can't remember that. I just remember that they were all perfect.
Everything's working
and then
out.
Things went kind of downhill from there. So I would say, talking to myself, then I'd give myself a little slap and say, dude, nothing. You've got 50 flights is nothing. It starts here. And
some more
always
humility,
get some
I
advice. Like, just have people around you that you can talk to, people watching you fly, people to give you that good advice that may save your life.
What about being receptive to advice at that stage? I think that when you're overconfident, that can be kind of hard. Do you remember? Do you think you would have been receptive?
Yeah, good question. I hope so. I think
I hear this from instructors a lot that there are a lot of people that are just earmuffs. They'll nod their head, but they'll tell you about how great they're doing, and they're not really taking it in.
Yeah. No one's actually sat me on my bum and said, "Phil, you need to."
Yeah, and I'm not saying you.
I'm
not saying you necessarily.
But I'm wondering. I'm wondering whether there were episodes in my past where people should have said something and didn't, like that clown there.
I'm thinking specifically of me here. Yeah.
What is he doing? Yeah, it is definitely a problem that I see with students, with good students, that they think they've got it all dialed in, but they don't, and they're setting themselves up for fall, and it's up to as an instructor, I try to highlight as much as I can, as well as as best I can, to the situations, and sit down and explain the situations and what can possibly go wrong, where someone kind of is in a hairy situation that they didn't realize, how close they were to having something really serious happen. So I wish there was a bit more of that in my past.
Phil, 13 months ago, that's a good transition. 13 months ago, you had an incident that I think people can really learn from. And, we've talked about accidents a lot on the show, so we don't need to go to the dark side of this, but I think it provides for good learning, because it was one of these things that it wasn't like you guys were flying in rowdy conditions. It wasn't like you guys were pushing the envelope. It wasn't like you guys, it was one of these like snake in the grass came out and bit your ass, and almost like for no fault. But there was, take us through it.
Yeah. How about that, huh? Talk about, I'm not going to say it wasn't a life-changing experience mentally, but certainly physically. You go to work one day and 2 weeks later, you leave the hospital, and 2 months later, you come home for the first time. Like you go to work one day and you come home 2 months later, like life just bang. It's like life just turns left. Whoa. And it can happen that quickly. And, I suppose I do have that reputation now in at least in Zermatt because of the things I've done. I fly the big triangles and I fly a bit of acro and I fly some comps and I probably fly more solo flights apart from Chris than anybody else. So everyone in Zermatt was like, no, couldn't be, not Phil. How could this happen? How could this happen to Phil? And that was tough. It was tough to digest as well. And you kind of, your reputation is a little bit in tatters. It's not, but it is.
You feel like
a way.
it is.
Yeah. God, I've let everyone down. Here I am, kind of championing this sport as being incredibly safe. As long as you build up your experience slowly, and you get a breadth of experience, and then suddenly this happens, and it's So how did it happen? I'm flying tandem in autumn. Conditions are very light. We're on a south-facing slope to get the only thermals that are around. Fortunately for us, we thermal. Well, I was thermaling Christmas Day in 2016, which is crazy. Zermatt gets good lift, probably longer than most places, but still, conditions are nice. They're gentle, they're light, but it involves flying and soaring close to a steep, rocky slope. And I'm following my friend and business partner in his tandem. We're both flying with the right wingtip to the slope. He turns out to fly back. I follow him, so we're both left wingtips to slope, and then he turns back into the slope. I fly a little further, and it's not a big area, but the timing is such that we both turn out away from the slope together. So we're both turning back towards the slope to get the lift. And it's at that point where there's this little hesitancy. And I asked him about it, and he said the same thing. There's a little bit of this.
What's he going to
do? Do I turn left or right? Left or right? And it's like bumping into someone in the street, an empty street. That can happen. You just, it's embarrassing. Boom, you chest bump someone accidentally, and you move on. On a crowded street, it's never going to happen because everyone kind of separates. And yes, there are obviously right-of-way rules in flying, as in lots of things. And the combination of our relative positions to the hill, to each other, just put us in a situation where that wasn't 100% clear. And paragliding, especially ridge soaring, is a lot about keeping eye contact, and we had the eye contact, we could see each other plainly, but we had this little hesitancy, and 1.5 seconds of hesitancy when you got two gliders closing at a closing speed of 70 kilometers an hour. Suddenly, all of your wiggle room is gone, and you could just hear me. I filmed it. I filmed the accident, and you can hear me swear and just bury the brake, and to bury the left brake to fly out away from the hill. My colleague, he felt like if he'd turned at that point away from the hill to give me right away, he would have hit me for sure. So that such was the position of our glider. So he went super close to the hill, as close as he could go to the hill, and I mashed the brake, spun the glider, looked up. I'm like, got this. I can stabilize this. And within like 2 to 3 seconds. I looked down, the ground came up. I was like, nope, I'm done, smashed. I buried both brakes to kind of flare, I suppose, as best I could do, and incredibly landed on a super steep slope with flat rocks and grass, tufts of grass. The glider held. I don't know whether the glider held us, but we didn't slide. We were in a kind of a flat-bottomed or a steep couloir between cliffs and rock outcrops, and it's just a fate that fortunately put me there rather than somewhere else. And fortunately, flying in Zermatt, having Air Zermatt next to our landing, and friends phoning them from the air, it was probably less than 20 minutes before I was in the heli heading to Inselspital in Bern. And that's what saved my life, I guess. Whew. Yeah. How life changes from one second to the next. The question that lingers is how to, it's easy to say, well, stay further away and be more conservative. That's true. But how to avoid that exact situation being exactly far enough apart and exactly positioned so that it brings that level of doubt as to whether to go left or right. And I think, the single takeout from that is on a ridge soaring, it's more critical than flying over with 100 people in a gaggle. You know what to expect. You know what to expect in a gaggle unless someone does something stupid. In a gaggle, everyone's turning the right the same way. People below you may climb quicker than you. Watch them. Yeah. A good pilot's gonna turn in because he's core in the thermal. That's okay. Let it happen. Find your slot. But flying with friends. Yeah. Where you're going back and forth on a ridge, there's always that eye contact that's required when you're pulling out from right away into not right away. Leave room. Make sure you got eye contact and really be conservative.
Yeah.
And obviously, my friend and I weren't, or circumstances conspired to produce that situation.
So here we are 13 months later. You're flying really well in a comp.
It's rehab.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I mean, what can you teach us about, coming back from something like that? We were kind of talking before we started recording it because it wasn't like you guys were, it wasn't like you were being stupid. It wasn't like you made a mistake. I mean, you guys made a mistake, but it was like a complacency thing. It was like just this weird.
I can't teach you much about how to avoid that accident.
No, I mean,
it's super aware of complacency. How do you?
Yeah.
It's oxymoron. You can't.
Yeah, right.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. Okay, be aware of complacency.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't even think we need to say any more about that. It's just great that it's another reminder that, on those mellow days is when we really got to be heads up. But I'm thinking more like the mental side, just, was it the first time you flew again? Was it scary? Was it nervous? Or did you find you were in a different headspace than you ever were before in your lifetime of flight? Or was it like, God damn it, thank God I'm back. I get to do this again.
I was definitely nervous on the start. I bought a lightweight school wing. I needed to buy one anyway, so I just bought two. And I thought, this is my, I need something that's super easy to start, not too fast, but I want to fly. And I didn't have anything in my current quiver of gliders that suited that. And I thought, no. And
no ENAs in your current quiver.
Strangely enough.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as a result of the accident, I have some nerve damage, which may or may not fully recover, but it's resulted in some limited movement in my left foot. So that means I just can't run very fast. And so I was nervous about how I was going to be able to take off. And it was 6 months and 1 week after the accident that I was on Rotorn. So I was in Zermatt, and I had a perfectly groomed snow-covered takeoff, which gave me lots of confidence. I had an easy wing. I had about 5K front wind. Like conditions were perfect. So, I was nervous at the start, not about having an accident. I was nervous about how I was going to feel. I didn't know how I was going to feel. Just talking with psychologists, psychiatrists in rehab. They're super aware of post-traumatic stress, and they were saying, don't be surprised after 6 months or 12 months or that suddenly it hits you. And touch wood, till now, mentally things have been going just great, just fine. So I was nervous about the takeoff, but as soon as I pulled the wing up, that just the tension on the carabiners lifted, the lifting off enabled me to run almost as fast or with minimal limp off the mountain, much easier than what I expected. So I was super happy that I was to be back in the air, and I was supposed to fly down, and I think was it that flight even I was supposed to fly down and land because my girlfriend was a student at the time, and maybe one or two others were up there, and I was supposed to fly down and then get on the radio talking down, and it was thermic, and I could actually hang out. So I was thermaling on my little Jomo lightweight school wing, woo! And so I radioed to the start and said, "Send students, send a Nook," and so she launched, and we flew wingtip to wingtip, which was very romantic and very healing, and after all we'd been through together, that was a big deal. That was a huge milestone in the whole rehabilitation, physically and mentally, to be in the air and then to fly with this person who's just been with me through this journey. Thanks, Anouk. I love you.
That's a great place to I think that's a beautiful place to end, because otherwise I'm going to start crying. So Phil, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. There's some great lessons there, and I guess we got one more day of this awesome comp, so I look forward to flying with you and getting in the air with you in Zermatt. I look forward to having you show me around that place a little around. Yeah. But thank you very much,
Gavin. It's been a pleasure and an honor. I look forward to flying with you a lot in the future.
Cheers. Cool. If you got something out of this, listening to Cloud-Based Mayhem, all we ask for is $1 a show. This is a listener-supported podcast, and it will be free. It will always be free. I love doing it. But as you can imagine, it is a lot of work and is very time-consuming and very time-consuming for our editor. Shout out here to Miles Connolly, just a total Jedi with all this stuff. You couldn't do it without him. But if you got something out of it, kind of treat it like a magazine subscription or something. And all we ask for, like I said, is $1 a show. You can do that through cloudbasedmayhem.com. You'll find the links on there to support it one-off through PayPal. Or you can sign up to be a regular supporter where you can kind of set it and forget it and be rewarded for doing so through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. We really, really, really appreciate it. It makes all this feasible.
thank you so much. Again, happy holidays, and we'll see you on the next show. Cheers.